So our country's in decline, and this is not something that's inevitable. It's something really that's a choice that we're going to make as Americans over these next 18 months. If we decide and choose to continue on this path, we are going to be the first generation in American history to leave to our kids and grandkids an America that is less prosperous and less free than the one we inherited. And that is not something that's acceptable to me. And that's the reason why I'm running for the presidency of the United States. We can reverse the decline. In order to do that, you have to send Biden back to his basement in Delaware. And that's my mission, to be able to get that job done. But then you also have to be able to do the types of things we need to get the country on the right track. What I bring to the table is leadership and a proven ability to actually deliver on promises. Because most of the people that run for office, they overpromise and then they underdeliver. They will tell you what you want to hear, and then they get into office and they never do anything about it. And for me, what we've done in Florida is everything I promised, I delivered. And I even over-delivered on my promises. So people got more than their money's worth in terms of me being elected and serving as governor. And that's really the way you've got to do it. It's not, this whole thing is not about entertainment. It's not about kind of the daily news cycle and the ups and downs. The only thing that ultimately matters is what lasting achievements are you able to bring to bear that's going to make people's lives better and make our country better. And that's it. And if you're not delivering that, then the rest of this is just kind of food fights that happen every day that really don't end up amounting to very much. So we have a track record of actually doing this. You listen on that stage at the debate the other night, of the things that were discussed, I'm the only one that's ever done anything about any of those. Immigration, in Florida, we've sent people to the border. We've interdicted boats coming from Haiti. We even send illegal aliens to Martha's Vineyard. I mean, we have been. You look at crime. You have Florida's crime rates at a 50-year low. That is not true what's happening in some of these other jurisdictions around the country. And you have prosecutors that have been elected in places like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, and they bring an agenda to bear where they are intentionally not enforcing laws that they don't like, and criminals are able to run free, and society ends up less safe, and crime goes up. There's one person in our entire country that's ever done anything about these hyper left-wing prosecutors. Me. We've had 2 in Florida that were not enforcing the law, and so I removed them from their posts. They are gone. And so that's taking decisive leadership. And we just did one about a month ago, and that decision will save lives in Florida, the fact that we did that. And so you've got to be willing to come up and get things done. Budget, economy. Look at our national debt, $32 trillion. Look at what they've done to devalue the dollar. In Florida, we've run budget surpluses every year I've been governor. We've paid down almost 25% of our state's total debt just since I've been governor in 2019. I vetoed billions of dollars worth of excessive and wasteful spending in the times that I've been governor. So it can be done. You just have to have the leadership and you have to have the will to be able to do it. But the prices and the problems in the economy with groceries and housing and all that, that was caused by federal government's policies. Starting in March of 2020 with the Fauci and the COVID lockdowns, that was a huge mistake that this country made. It was like shooting ourselves in the foot. And they printed and spent and borrowed trillions and trillions of dollars. That caused the inflation to happen and set the stage. And there was a lot of spending that happened over many, many years. And so the people in Washington have done very well. 5 of the 8 wealthiest counties in our country are suburbs of Washington, D.C. How does that happen? It happens because the people that are politically connected are doing better, and then the rest of the country is basically on the hook to pay the bills of everything that's happened. And so that's country song, that they started a debate with that's gotten very popular about rich men north of Richmond. I mean, it's true. The basic outline of it is true. And that's not what we want in an economy. We want an economy that works for people that are working hard outside of Washington, D.C. and that are being rewarded based on hard work, not based on your political connection to the governing class. So we'll be able to address that for sure. Energy. Why would you want to force us to use less of our own energy and make us more dependent on foreign countries, especially China? When they force things like electric vehicles, you are going to be more dependent on China as a result of that. I don't think that that's smart in terms of our national security strategy. It's not good economics, and yet that's what Biden has done. So we're going to do a complete opening up of energy, and we will be energy dominant in this country. And that's not only good for consumers, it's not only good for businesses, it's not only good for jobs, it is good for our national security. If you want to help Russia and Iran and Venezuela and China adopt Biden's policies, if you don't want to help them and want to make life more difficult for them, open up our own energy and be the dominant energy producer in the world. That'll make a big difference geopolitically. So we're going to do that, and that's not even going to be discussion. And then the bureaucracy and the red tape that Biden is putting on people. The big corporations are fine with it because they have accountants, they figure out ways, a lot of times they have loopholes. It's the small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they bear the burden of this. So we're going to take all those regulations, all the bureaucracy, executive order from Biden, and on day one, it's going in the trash can. So it'll be a fresh start, and you're going to see the economy do much better. People say, he tries to say the economy is really good. Now, part of the reason they can point to the jobs is because states like Florida and Texas have produced so many jobs, but that's in spite of Bidenomics. That's not because of Bidenomics. We're doing that, and we're drawing investment to Florida because I'm doing the opposite of what Biden is doing. And so people are coming to Florida as a refuge from some of the bad policies that you see in New York or in Illinois or in California. And so that being said, you are not growing this economy the way we need to, and the ability to even afford a house or a car or groceries is something that middle-class families that are working hard are having trouble to make ends meet. And if you don't have an economy that works for those people, it's just not going to work, period. So we're going to address that. We're also going to finally be the president to solve the issue of the southern border. And I'm sick of this thing going unaddressed. And we've heard a lot of talk about it over many, many years. It hasn't gotten done. We are going to declare it a national emergency on day one. We're going to marshal all available resources, including our military, to be on the border, stop the invasion into this country. Yes, we'll build the border wall, because I think you need that, but we're going to lean in against the Mexican drug cartels. They are basically foreign terrorist organizations that are killing tens of thousands of our fellow citizens by moving in fentanyl and other product into this country. They're also responsible for gruesome sex and human trafficking into this country, and they need to be treated like the terrorist groups they are. So we will authorize deadly force against the Mexican drug cartels. If somebody broke into your house and was trying to kill you, you would use deadly force to protect your family. Of course you would. Yet they can break into our, and you look at the border, it's a wide open border by and large, but there are parts that have border fencing or border walls. And they will cut through that and bring in fentanyl. And I'm like, and you just let them do it? So, we'll have that being surveilled, and if they try to come through the border wall, they're going to be shot dead. I mean, that's the only way you defend your country, to be able to actually use force to hold these people accountable. And you know what? Once they see we're willing to do that, you're going to see a change of behavior. They control the border more than our own government does right now with what's going on. So there'll be a new sheriff in town on that. And look, this is something, I'm a dad, you saw 6, 5, and 3. So my kids aren't at the age yet where they're out and about doing different things. But what I've seen in over many, many years now, unfortunately, I'll meet angel moms. These are mothers that have lost kids to fentanyl overdose. In almost every instance, it is a normal kid, not really doing anything wrong. Maybe they're stressed out or something. Someone gives them a pill. They say it's like a Xanax or something. They take it, but it's laced with fentanyl, unbeknownst to them, and then they die. And so that's being repeated in communities all across this country. And yet I don't see the people in D.C. lifting a finger to stop it. It's almost like, you know, they just don't care. So we're going to put a stop to it. We're not going to let this just ravage our country any longer. And I think people in Florida know me. Even people that have opposed me politically, they'll admit if the governor tells you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He's not just going to say, like that's a commitment he's going to make, and he's going to get the job done. So the border will be taken care of, and it'll be a day one priority. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to clean up the bureaucracy and bring this administrative state to account. And that's a variety of different ways. I mean, one way we're going to do it is by bringing accountability about COVID-19 for what the federal government did. The fact of the matter is those lockdown policies were destructive. What Fauci did was wrong. It was harmful to communities all across this country. Not as much in Iowa because you had a good governor, not as much in Florida because we kept the state free, but in a lot of communities, you had kids locked out of school for a year and a half. You had businesses shuttered and never were able to open again. And it really, really left a mark, and it did nothing positive for health at all. In fact, it was negative for health, because when you're isolating people, that causes things like depression, substance abuse. There's all kind of things that flow from that. You also didn't have people getting the medical attention they needed for other things. So it created, I think, a really, really bad thing. Yet nobody's been held accountable for it. Fauci was just in an interview I saw earlier this month saying that he claims lockdowns are essential, that this is somehow a good thing, and that it was the right thing to do. And basically the implication is they would not hesitate to do it again. Well, when I'm president, we're going to let that happen. We're going to hold people accountable, and we're going to ensure that in the United States, you're never infringed upon by some health bureaucrat trying to take away your freedom. And if we don't bring accountability, they will do it again. You're seeing in parts of the country now, they're imposing mask mandates for COVID. They're going to try to do it again. And you know, these colleges and stuff, we're seeing it. It's starting to percolate. Media's starting to try to do the fear-mongering. They named the more recent variant some scary name. So they're trying to do this. And it's like, okay, the March of 2020, people bought into it, but like now, like we can't buy into this. Like we've got to stand strong. So we will do that. But that means CDC, NIH, FDA, we're going to totally clean these places out. Right now, a lot of them are basically run by big pharma anyways. I mean, the FDA is basically a subsidiary of the pharmaceutical industries. People that work in FDA, what's the job they go to when they're done working on the FDA? They go work for big pharma. Like, maybe not 100%, but probably 90% they go. So it's a revolving door, and it's really, really corrupt. And you know, part of the reason it doesn't get as much exposure is because the corporate media in this country is funded by pharmaceutical ads. I mean, you turn on the TV, you see it. So that's a huge source of revenue for them. So they do not hold big pharma accountable because it's biting the hand that feeds them. And so this has been allowed to develop over a long period of time. It's been very, very destructive. I mean, our healthcare system with big pharma, big insurance, big government, you know, it's an iron triangle that leaves the patient at the back of the bus, even leaves individual physicians at the back of the bus. And so kind of breaking up that, I think, is going to be really, really important. And then the larger bureaucracy of agencies like FBI, DOJ, IRS, we're going to end the weaponization of government. We're going to have a new FBI director on day one. You're going to see the DOJ cleared out. We're not going to let them target Americans. I mean, to have parents going to school board meetings and the FBI be concerned with that. They did memos circulating in the Bureau about traditional Catholics being potential terrorists. On and on it goes, and you're like, what is going on with this? I mean, it's really, really scary. So there's going to be a big house cleaning on that, and that's the right thing to do, period, because as Americans, to have the government power weaponized against groups in society that people in power don't like, that's fundamentally anti-American, and it's wrong, and it's not what a free society wants. It's also the case, federal law enforcement, when they're focusing on parents going to school board meetings, what are they not focused on? Actual crime. Our cities are being hollowed out in many parts of the country. You have massive amounts of human trafficking happen. There's a lot of things that federal law enforcement needs to be doing a better job at tackling. And so you get them out of this political stuff. Don't worry about misinformation. We're not going to let them work with big tech to censor any information. In Florida, we ban that for our state employees. So we'll take care of all that, but man, keep your eye on the ball. We've got a lot of stuff that we need to do in our communities. And then finally, I think, and there's a bunch of other stuff we could talk about, but the military. So, you know, I volunteered to serve after 9/11, and I did a bunch of different assignments, but one of them was going to Iraq. I got assigned to work alongside Navy SEALs in places like Fallujah and Ramadi and in Al Anbar province, which is not a great place to be at the time. And it was something that when you're, it's valuable. It was valuable service because when you're wearing the uniform, and those of you veterans know this, like, you know, people come from different backgrounds, they have different ideas, all this stuff, but you check all that at the door. It's not about you. It's not about your agenda. It's about accomplishing the mission. You got to be focused. You got to be disciplined. You got to get the job done because people's lives are on the line. And that's something that honestly has benefited me a lot as being governor and will benefit me as being president. Because I tune out all the background noise. I know, like, I'm a leader. I've got to kind of get to true north, and there's going to be a lot of distractions. People are going to try to thrust upon me. I'm not getting distracted. I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to get the job done. We'll do the same thing as the president. But I also know now, talking with veterans, about how concerned they are with the state of the military. A lot of them wouldn't want their kids or grandkids joining the military because you see woke ideology, social experimentation, all these things happening that recruiting is low, morale's low, a lot of warriors have been driven off. So we will, on day one as Commander-in-Chief, we'll take all of the nonsense out of the military, and we're going to focus on mission first again. And when you do that, you are going to see morale increase, and you're going to see recruiting increase to our armed forces. Because on the current course, we're not going to be able to have a military that could even compete with China, you know, 10 years out if we continue going the direction that we're going. And we've got threats that we've got to deal with in this world, and the best way to deal with threats and to keep us out of a war is to be strong and to be a country that people don't want to mess with. And we got to get back to that. I think China laughs at us when they see like military training where they're talking about pronouns or drag queens or things like that. That is not what we should be focused on. So there's a lot more to do, but those are some things I think are important. But here's the thing, 2024 I think is make or break. I think if the Democrats win, they're going to try to pack the Supreme Court, get rid of the Electoral College, make D.C. a state, eliminate voter ID in every jurisdiction in this country, and that will put this country in a hole that'll be almost impossible to dig out of. But we've been in a situation as Republicans where we've been fumbling a lot of important elections recently, not in Iowa, not in Florida. We were supposed to have a big red wave in 2022. Didn't happen. It happened in Iowa, it happened in Florida, but it didn't happen throughout the country. And so I think it's up to us to say, if this election is about the failure of Biden's policies and about our vision to reverse the country's decline and restore this country, we're going to win. If the election is about all the past stuff, if it's about things where Biden's going to be able to hang out in the basement and not be held accountable, and it's not going to be about the American people's future and the American people's issues, then we're going to lose, and Biden's going to end up getting in again. So I'll be the guy that'll be able to get the job done on the election and then deliver on all these really, really important policies. And I look forward to being able to do that, and I'm happy to be able to be here with you all, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Yes?
Can you speak, Governor, to the issue of carbon sequestration?
Specifically with what?
Pipelines and crisscrossing and safety and regulation and inspection, all that.
Well, I mean, I think obviously, you know, it's got to be, things need to be safe. There's got to be safety guidelines. I mean, I know people are talking about, you know, some of the stuff with the with these farms and stuff. You know, my view on that is just that people should negotiate with private property owners. I think that's the way it should be done. Yes, ma'am.
How do you envision making sure that our election is going to be done correctly?
So one is, I mean, states like Florida have gotten it right. So we have the best election integrity in the country. We can count probably 12 million votes by midnight on election night, report the results. You know how many people voted. There's not hundreds of thousands of ballots that are found 2 days later. Like, we've got that done. No ballot harvesting, no Zuckerbucks, universal voter ID, and we even have an election crimes office we created in state government that prosecutes people that violate election law. And so I think our system is the way to go. Other states have done it. Now, in the states that haven't done that, we have to do what the Democrats are doing. I mean, I'm not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back. The Republican attitude to this has been to complain about it. Yeah, I don't like ballot harvesting. I made it illegal in Florida. But if Nevada allows it, are you going to just sit there and complain and whine about it? Or are you going to utilize those rules to be able to get your people out and get as many votes as you can? So we'll have organizations in all the competitive states that will be tailored to whatever their rules are, and we're going to exploit that. And then we're also going to have people on the ground that are going to be ready to combat anything that the Democrats are doing that would be outside of what the rules are. But you got to be ready to go on this, and you can't whine about it. I mean, none of these elections, in our country's history, there's always been issues with elections, okay? That's priced in. So the candidate has got to overcome whatever they're going to throw at you. And I will be able to do that. I mean, we obviously did it in Florida. We won by 1.5 million votes. So some of it is all these organizations, but some of it is you got to go win the argument with the country. And if you win independent voters and you're able to do all that, we're going to do very, very well. So we'll be ready. We're not going to let them get away with anything. But we can't just tell people, to only vote on election day. Like, I'm fine if you didn't want any absentee or early vote to do, I would be fine with that. But if you have early vote, you should have people do it. Because if they don't do it and they get a flat tire on election day or something happens, like, bank your votes. Whatever the rules are, bank them. Don't tell someone don't vote by mail. If they have a mail ballot on their kitchen table, tell them to fill it out and send it in. That's a lot easier to do than get in your car and go to the polling places. And I think the Democrats, they figured this out. I mean, they go and try to collect any ballot they can. I mean, do that. And we should just do the same thing. Don't fight with one hand tied behind your back. Yep.
So a lot of us are employers in the room, and we hire people and know that we can't do this all by ourselves, right? You can't do this all by yourself. So you've been, I think, incredibly good at hiring the right people in your cabinet in Florida. How do you do that on a national level? Because we certainly did not drain the swamp.
No, it's a great question. I think if you look at, say, the Trump administration, I mean, clearly personnel was a huge, huge Achilles heel, huge liability. And when you get in, especially in D.C., when you get there, everyone's going to be against you. The bureaucracy is going to be against you. The media is going to be against you. Obviously, the Democrats. But even some of these old guard Republicans, they do fine up there. They don't necessarily want to see changes. So if all you're doing is recycling people from inside D.C., it's just not going to work. So you need to bring people from outside D.C., and these are going to be people that are going to be told, and it's not just your cabinet, it's 2-3 levels down. You're going to come to D.C. for a limited period of time, 2, 4, 6, 8 years, bring your family, you're on a mission. Basically, the mission is simple. We need to return the government to its proper owners, we the American people. It shouldn't be a government of, by, and for the bureaucrats. It should be a government that reflects the will of the people. So that's what we have to do. So it's a policy thing, it affects the regulations, everything, but it's more fundamental than that, about who governs society. And you've got to have those people ready. You also got to have people with certain mindsets. So for example, in Florida, our Surgeon General is a guy named Dr. Joe Ladapo. And we hired him from UCLA. And he basically, from the beginning of COVID, was throwing the flag with respect to what was going on. He was speaking out against COVID lockdowns, speaking out against forced masking, speaking out against school closures, speaking out against COVID vaccine mandates, and basically taking the opposite position of Fauci and people like that. And so, I just told them, I said, listen, when you're doing that, you're going to be probably the only Surgeon General in America that's going to be willing to do that, and you're going to get blowback, and they're going to attack you. And just so you know, my judge of whether you're doing a good job or not is, if they're attacking you, then I know you're doing it right. If they're not, then I think you're probably folding and caving. So I want them to go after you because that is showing that you're over the target. And that's what's going to happen in D.C. I mean, you have an attorney general that's really going to clean up the Justice Department. They are going to get absolutely pilloried by media, by the left. I mean, it's going to be nonstop. Look what they're doing to Clarence Thomas with some of these left-wing groups working with the media. I mean, they're basically trying to like get him to leave the court. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they are targeting him. I mean, that's what they're doing. And that's going to be the same thing. So you got to have a backbone, and you've just got to have a psyche that you're going to view that as that means you're on the right track. And you're not going to worry about being liked in Washington, because the minute a Republican wants to be liked in Washington, you've lost. You've lost. The swamp is not going to drain itself. The swamp does not want to be drained. 5 of the 8 wealthiest counties, as I mentioned, are suburbs of Washington, D.C. They don't want to see change. So you just have to understand that going in, and if you do, I think you can accomplish an awful lot. If you're worried about all this other stuff, it's just not going to work. So those are things that you just have to look, know kind of how people, what they're made of, why they're in this. And, my view is just, look, I have a foundation, faith in God, love of country, appreciation for our history. I'm not trying to impress, some TV host or anything like that. Like, that's just not me. Like, I know where true north is, and someone can criticize me, but north is still north. Someone can praise me, but north is still north. And you just have to have that. And if you have that, then I think you can accomplish a great deal.
Going back to our national debt for a second, with the U.S. downgrade of long-term U.S. debt earlier this month from AAA to AA+, I think the main comment on it was due to deterioration of standards in governance. But specifically, what would be some high-level things that you would look to take care of day one with reducing national debt?
Well, so, Florida, we have a AAA credit rating in Florida. So our credit rating is higher than the credit rating of the United States government. And I think it just shows you something about priorities. I think it shows you something about leadership. If you look right now, so we were